Hey there, it's Teresa here, and thank you for joining me for another conversation from my couch. Hi, I'm Teresa Youngkin. I am a leadership coach and consultant, and you'll find me here every Wednesday talking about all things leadership. So let's get started. I had a DM last week, and we talked about coaching. So when I had a DM about coaching last week that somebody sent me. It's been such a crazy day. So you're going to have to excuse me if I get a little tongue tied here and refer to my notes. But anyways, what they had DM'd me about is that they were getting tired of constantly having to tell the same thing to their teams. So let's talk about the curse of knowledge, and maybe we're going to sprinkle a little magic dust on that today. So what is the curse of knowledge? The curse of knowledge is a phenomenon that happens when you know something because you've experienced it, you've done it. It's just a part of your personal institutional knowledge that you assume everybody else knows because you know it. Many times we as leaders feel that if we know something, then our team knows that too. And that's where we start to run into communication issues back and forth between ourselves as leaders and our teams. So how do we start addressing that? Here's a clue that you might need a little bit of magic dust on that curse of knowledge is when you hear, I never know what's going on, or I missed that. So if people on your team are coming to you, you're finding that you're answering the same questions over and over again, or you're hearing issues about not having transparency that they don't understand, or maybe that they didn't know something that you're almost sure that you mentioned in passing, think about if it's something that you might know or are able to draw inferences because you know something that they may not know. So how will we sprinkle a little magic dust on that? Number one, how about having that discussion in a one-on-one with your team? So with your team members. So if you're hearing that, if you're in a team setting, you can say, let's put a pin on it and discuss this in your next one-on-one. Probe a little bit, ask some great open-ended questions to get to the root of what they don't understand, and if you have some knowledge that you can give to them, to impart to them. And secondly, listen for those questions that your team is always asking. So if they're asking the same question over and over, and maybe that they don't understand, or they're missing a piece of information that you have that they need to get them moving forward. So number two, another clue that you might, or another way that the curse of knowledge shows up is that your team may know something that you don't know. So if you, what are some of the clues? If your team is spending more time explaining things to you in meetings than you are, then they are talking about what they're doing and what their challenges are, or the progress that they're making on their projects, they may be holding information. You may be educating yourself at a time when you may be educating yourself knowing that, oh my God, like, what is it today? It is just like crazy. You may be actually holding them up because you're trying to educate yourself. Your team knows something that you don't know. And one point I'd like to caution you here, and I wrote this down, is that busy is not an excuse for not being engaged with your team. So if you're finding that your team's doing a lot of educating to you, then maybe you need to stop, slow down, take 5 minutes before a meeting and get them up to speed before you enter the meeting with your team. Secondly, you keep hearing the same challenges every time you meet. So if there's a challenge that's happening and you're hearing it over and over and over again, maybe you need to stop, dive deeper into that with your team, ask some good open-ended questions with your team, but dive a little deeper with them and try to get to the root of what the cause is for that. Again, when does that happen? You can sprinkle that little bit of fairy dust during your one-on-ones. And truly, when you're in the meeting, listen for opportunities to fill in the gaps. So what kind of gaps are you going to be filling? Probably a little piece, like there's a process that happens down the road before it comes to your team that always holds something up. That's why they're always behind. They may get it. There might be a day or two of manufacturing that happens before your team gets something. So that's causing the gap in it. But they may not know that this is something that always happens if there's an issue with supply chain. Two things that I did want to caution you with. When you are filling in information for your teams, you want to do two things. You want to identify two ways that you can do this. Number one is to identify whether it is a piece of information that needs a story, like a backstory that you need to tell them before you give them the information, because it makes no sense to give somebody information and they still don't understand why it's happening, and then they're still coming back to you because they still don't understand. Or if it's just a piece of information that you need to give them, so you don't need to give them a backstory. Maybe you're taking up too much of their time giving them backstories for something that's just a piece of information that they need a yes and no answer, or somewhere where they can go find it themselves. So really take, when you're filling in the gaps for your team, you really need to assess and be strategic about how you're doing it, because you definitely don't want to come off as a leader as being, what's a good word for haughty? You don't want to come off as being knowing more than them, or superior than they are, right? You want to meet your team where they're at. You're always building know, like, and trust. So, hey, thank you so much for hanging out with me today with another conversation from my couch. Sorry for all the distractedness, or like not being able to get my words out. I am a little tired, a little hungry, but it is what it is. So, leadership's not a perfect thing. I don't show up perfect every week. We don't show up perfect in our lives. So I'll catch you guys on the flip side. You can catch me on all social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Thank you so much for coming. I will see you next week on another episode of Conversations from My Couch. Peace.